All right, chapter 5 and 6. Let's go. So we're going to talk about season planning and some individual practice planning here today. So when you're practicing, a lot of this is going to be repeats, so this might actually be a fairly short lecture. You still need to read the book before you take the quiz. So we're going to roll with it here. Apologies for the mowing lawn outside my door here going on. So planning for your season. So you're going to have key areas such as like medical services, conditioning, tactical planning must be addressed before the season begins and to ensure a good start. Knowing what you have also is going to help. Player safety. What kind of performance through getting medical examinations, making sure they have insurance, making sure your team has insurance, whether it's a club team or a school team. Preferably, if you can have year-round conditioning and tailored strength training programs, that would be the best way to do it. If you're in basketball coaching here, coordinating with the AAU programs, maybe you are the AAU program, and you coach the high school team, and then you coach an AAU team in the spring. I was talking with one of our people here, one guy in the gym here earlier, talking about their AAU programs that they were doing. Definitely have to check before the season starts. Make sure they have physical conditions. Have a physician check them out to make sure they don't have any bad things. Like there was a guy a few years ago. He had one eye. Played for Baylor. I don't remember what his name was. He found out he had Marfan syndrome, which is why he was so long and lanky. And that also comes with a possible heart defect. And so he never got to play in the NBA because no doctor would clear him because of that possible heart defect due to Marfan syndrome. But he did play at Baylor in the NCAA before he was officially diagnosed with Marfan's. So having good relationships with the medical professionals, and hopefully, like our college team here, we should have an athletic trainer, but right now we have a church member that has a physical therapy clinic in St. Helena, and his clinic runs the athletic trainer side of our services here. So I would say that's a pretty good relationship to have. So modern basketball demands year-round conditioning. Man, I wish I could do that with my high school team. Off-season as well as in-season training programs. I would love to have weight times or weight training in the off-season with my basketball team. Like season ends in, February? If I could have them twice a week in the weight room with me, oh man, that'd be awesome. But it just doesn't seem to be possible. So summer, coordinating with an AAU program, maybe you have a summer league in your area. That's something I'm going to look for my high school team and see if I can find some summer league that my players can be a part of. Summer basketball camps are essential for getting players. They learn a lot in a very short amount of time. I took my players to a PGC program, a few of them, and they did great. I was really impressed. Not sadly. Happily, I missed out on most of it because the baby was born after I had been there for a grand total of 6 hours. But I'm hoping to go back, and I have a credit that I need to use to go to another one. Hopefully that's closer than 2 hours away. Or I might even run my own this year. I know we do I don't remember what the thing is right after school ends at the college here. Pacific Quest, and they have this Pacific Quest Aviation. I would love to do a Pacific Quest basketball. Don't know if it's going to happen, but it's a possibility. And maybe I would even see if it's possible to work with our coaches in order to do that here so that myself and the college coach could be running this camp together. Anyways, just dreams. And then I would use maybe some of you college students to come and be part of that as well. Just dreams. Don't know if it'll happen. Building success every day is, and I always say that 1% rule. If you can get 1% better every single practice, you're going to imagine how much better you're going to be by the end of the season. So in our book, it talks about Ahmad Smith here. He went from an unknown sophomore to a pro basketball player. His journey started at O'Connell University and ended up in the top level of the German leagues. As a sophomore, he progressed to hitting winning free throws at the end of the game. Had other escalades like All-Metro led teams despite the challenges, and I don't know what the scandals. You may want to read your textbook to get the whole story here. Ahmad persists through Ireland, Spain, and then last we knew he was in the German Division 1. His story emphasizes the importance of individual practice in the off-season. Players that work the hardest in the off-season are going to be your best players the next year. And I have seen this time and time again in my coaching. We had a blonde player for my last Lodi team, and my first year, he was a sophomore. I didn't really give him a second or third thought. He was just kind of that extra guy. Senior year comes after he was out there shooting every night at his house there. He had an outdoor basketball court at his house, and he worked his tail off, and he hit the Kobe Bryant shot at the end of the game to win our first playoff game in 10 years. And it was all because of his hard work in the offseason that earned him that shot, really. So, tips for running your own basketball camp. So this is going to apply to me as well if I want to actually do this. To run a basketball camp, gain experience at other established camps. So I'm trying to go to PGC ones. Learn the nuances of running an effective camp. Seek advice from other camp organizers. One of the other coaches that was watching the camp there, he was doing it for that exact reason. So begin with day camps before diving into overnight camps, considering your facilities and everything, age levels. Key aspects like guest speakers, securities, campaigns, tuitions, housing arrangements if you're over at so that'd be held at a high school or a college that has dorms. Planning and attention to detail. And I'm going to probably have a secretary that can help me with that. I wonder if my wife can help with 2 small children at home. Probably not. Probably need to find somebody else. Moving on. Team managers are really important, and your coaching staff having roles and we talked about this in one of our previous lectures as well when it came to assistant coaches. But having well-chosen, responsible managers to help keep everything going. Even something as simple as making sure the basketballs and jerseys make it onto the bus or onto the airplane, however you're traveling. Having a specific, I would personally, if I was the head coach of the basketball team here on campus, I would need somebody that can help with travel arrangements. I am not good at that. It takes me forever. So having somebody that's really experienced doing that for a team manager would be huge for me. Equipment essentials, taking care of your team's equipment. I am probably one of the roughest people when it comes to our equipment. I do not like other people using the basketball team's equipment or the gymnastics team. For example, I would have people request when I was the gymnastics coach, can we use the gymnastics mats this is one of the things they asked, for a Saturday night activity for the school. We want to have a game night and we want them to be able to lay down and play board games. And I said, no, I want the gymnastics mats to be used for gymnastics only because they only last so long. Same thing with the crash pads or landing pads, I guess they're called now. They would want to use them for a fall fest or fundraiser event in the gym. And they're like, oh, we want to have I forgot what my last school called it, a pommel horse maybe, gladiator thing where they would sit on top of the balance beam gymnastics equipment and they would whack it with stuff or whack each other with poles that had pillows on the end and try to knock them off and have them land on the gymnastics mats. And I told them, no, again, I want our stuff to be used for just gymnastics. So the same thing goes for like the shooting machine in the gym here. Currently, prep is not allowed to use the shooting machine that the college uses because they want it to last as long as possible for the college students. I totally support that. So prep is going to try to get their own shooting machine. Currently, we're working on getting actually the college's old one that's over at Rio. And I actually might see that today or tomorrow because they're having the college or the tournament here. So to be continued. We'll see how that goes. Considering league-approved basketballs, always check whatever league you're in. Do they have a specific basketball they have to use? Because usually they have a thing in there. Keeping good uniforms, ankle support, player performance, and safety. Making sure you know how to, if you don't have a trainer, making sure you know how to tape an ankle is massive to being able to do this. And maybe that should be part of this class is, can you tape an ankle? I know we have an entire class for athletic injuries and rehabilitation stuff. Care and prevention, there we go, of athletic injuries. And that's a major part is the ankle one, but maybe that's something I should be doing for basketball and volleyball because you're going to be doing it. Being able to adapt and change. Every coach has to be a little... I remember watching Duke a few years ago, which had Coach K at the time, and this was when Grayson Allen was there. And they were playing a 2-3 zone. I've never seen Coach K's teams run a 2-3 zone. But with the personnel that he had and the communication that he had with the players and the chemistry they had, they made a really difficult 2-3 zone. And it was highly interesting watching Syracuse versus Duke because they were both running 2-3 zones. Organizing your practice within whatever facilities you have. Do you have 1 court, 2 courts, 3 courts? My practices are usually I'm allowed to use the center court and a side court. So I tend to start on the side court because we practice girls and guys at the same time. But I usually have more players and put them in the middle. So knowing what facilities you have is very important. All right, season planning for basketball coaches. So here is, from our textbook, all the kind of master things. I would highly recommend save this slide, save this list. So it's when you start planning out your coaching year, so probably a month before the season starts, what kind of offense do I have? What am I going to run against man? What am I going to run against zone? Are there going to be any combo things? Am I seeing any junk defense with like a triangle and 2? What am I going to do against a press? Defense. Are we going to run man? Are we going to run zone? Are we going to run junk defenses? Individual. Are we going to play on the ball? Are we going to, what kind of away from the ball coverage are we going to have? On the line, away from the line, denying? Or how are we going to cover the post? Who's going to double the post if we need to? And having ways of having that all selected out. What kind of conditioning? What fundamental drills are you going to run? We worked in our class practice the other day. We worked on mostly how we're picking up the ball and how we're passing it. Rebounding. I always struggle with this one for my teams is I don't like running just straight rebounding drills because I don't feel like the return for my time investment is very good. So trying to have that being an emphasis as a part of our games type approach is where I'm going to probably emphasize that now. How you're going to conversions. I call it transition between offense to defense, defense to offense. How you're going to line up for off or free throws. Do you put your guards up there on the defensive rebound? Because that way they're ready to get the ball out as quick as possible. Or do you try to put your biggest guys there? It's just something to think about. Your jump ball. Oh man, I screwed up the jump ball situation in my first teams because I didn't tell them where to stand. And so I'd put 2 people on one side of and 2 people on that side, 2 people on the other side. And we had teams scoring buckets off the tip-off. And I'm like, okay, we're just going to have all 4 people back. So I make sure before our first game, that's one of the things we go over. What are your out-of-bounds responsibilities on defense going to be? And what kind of offensive plays are you going to run to get it there? So we call those blobs, B-L-O-B, baseline out-of-bounds. Kind of situations there. And then what else do we got? Game plans, rules. What new rules are there this year? Every year there are new high school and college rules. Trip organization, that's the one where I need a lot of help with. Are you going to have a dress code? I've had teams that had to wear a tie when they came to the games, and then they go to the locker room and change. Are you going to have curfews at night or not? Can they bring guests with them? I know in the NBA, can you bring a guest with you? Usually your wife, you would think, but I've heard things about like celebrities going on the team flights to go places. Are you going to get a bus for the whole team, or are you going to drive in vans once you get there, or are you going to drive the whole way? One year our teams drove all the way to Oregon, and the other year they flew. So it just depends. And then I haven't had to deal with the news media too much or PR things because we're a small enough school, but those are also things to consider. Usually the best thing I tell the players is you're never talking to the media. Let that be the coach's responsibility. So proper planning prevents poor performance. So if you have everything planned out, you're going to be preparing to be successful, whereas failing to prepare is preparing to fail. I really don't like coaches that come into practice or come into a season that have no plan. I'm just going to do it off the top of my head. I overplan so that if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to be, or if I don't get to it, like our practice the other day, and you're going to see a copy of it here in a second. We didn't get to everything I wanted to get to. And that's okay. I'd rather overplan so that I can have less to do rather than get to the end of practice and be like, well, now what do we do? Getting your scheduling. Scheduling is an athletic director thing most of the time. And, you know, it was interesting because we used to have like a conference meeting, and that's where we did most of our planning for the next year for stuff. So the athletic directors would all get together and they're like, well, let's do the same date for next year. So, you know, we played on April 11th this year. Next year it's going to be April 13th is the second Tuesday of April. Well, that will still work for you. And so we actually almost tried to do like the exact same schedule. Avoid overscheduling tough opponents, balance building. I mean, if you have a schedule where you end up around 500, you're probably playing at the appropriate level for your team's amount of talent and capabilities. If you're losing every game, you might need to consider changing the competitive level. I did that in Arizona. Our first year, we lost all but 3 games. We switched to a different league, and that made all the difference in the world. New competitive league, and now we were above 500 my first year, and we made it to the playoffs, and we lost by 1 point with my best player getting a wide open 3 to have a chance to win it. I mean, what else can you ask for? So I really felt bad for the college here a few years ago because they had a top 10 NAIA team. I think it was Antelope Valley, and we had them for our senior night. Last home game of the year, we scheduled the hardest team in the league. I'm like, ouch, what a terrible way of doing that. Just killed me. And I just felt so bad for our seniors that had to go out being down 20 points in the first 7 minutes of the game, probably. It was just bad. And guys and girls both. It was just horrendous. Oh, man, I love scouting. Probably my favorite date with my wife after we'd been married for almost 10 years. There was a game, the top 2 teams we were playing on a Saturday night about 10 minutes from us. So I took a binder and our scouting reports, and we sat kind of in the back corner of the gym as far away from anybody that could listen. And we scouted the top 2 opponents in our league. It was really fun. We were just like, and here's the play they're running. We're diagramming plays. Their inbounds plays. And it was a good game like that. They had a lot of like execution type games rather than a like run and gun kind of game. So I learned a ton, and we were very successful against both of those teams that year. This is what our book has. I have another one that I'll show you another time. Personnel and tendencies. Here's their height and weight. I would grab that off of Max Preps if I can, at least in the high school world. You know, who's their first substitution? I like that as well. I usually just had their top 7 or 8 people is who I would write down and scout. Let's see. Who's the player who could take over? Whom do you foul? That's when you get off of that's something as an assistant coach. Make sure you know at the end of the game, tell the coach, this is the worst free throw shooter on the floor right now. When you get pressed, what are you going to do? Half-court man-to-man, half-court zone set that they run. Hopefully you can see both in the same game. What matchups do you have? And you can plot out what matchups you want, depending on your team there. I play a lot of zone, so I don't truly match up quite like that very much, but that's something I'm hoping to get better at as this school year goes on. Do they play a junk defense, box in one? I always did a triangle in one personally, or a diamond in one. That's just a personal one. I've only did it for one game, and we failed miserably because we were down like 15 points at halftime because some unknown guy hit 4 threes from the corner. We went back to our normal defense, and we came back and won the game. So sometimes I overplan. Again, I was telling you, travel, being efficient with that, whether you're using a bus, vans. I ended up getting my bus license so that I could drive. Speaking of which, I need to get my physical for that. But I love also something to think about. Some teams don't allow their teams to have headphones during trips. So they'll let them keep. I've had teams that don't allow them to have their phones during trips. Like once you get on the bus, nobody has it because they want them to talk to each other rather than sit there with their headphones on. I never did that, but I did see a music teacher that did that, and it definitely had more team bonding or more group bonding when they didn't sit there on their phones the whole time. Or just sitting there listening to music back before, I know it makes me sound really dated, when I had an MP3 player on a bus trip for a basketball game. Oh, and another random side note on the driving places. When you do drive places, I tell my teams, don't fall asleep. Especially if you have the first game off the bus or out of the vans. Tell them, do not sleep. So when my teams are driving from here to Santa Rosa, don't fall asleep because you're going to be sluggish when you wake up. Empowering success for colleges. Hopefully you as a coach can guide and support your players to get to the next level. Currently, my goal is to have one player from prep make PUC's team every year. And I think I have a pretty good chance. I don't know if they're going to all go to PUC after they graduate, but having the talent level to get there. Seems my time might be short. My little assistant is making noise. So empowering that success of those college or those players. All right, so some recruitment guidelines that come out of our textbook here. There is some fair play. Recruiters visiting DeMatha would get equal treatment regardless if they were famous. Like, if Coach K walks in from Duke compared to a Division II program that we've never heard of, they all get the same thing. For every college coach, give them an equal opportunity to interact with the players. Treating all recruiters equally, emphasizing fair treatment from the high school that you are at. I've never had this as a big thing for my players. But you may. So evaluation, college coaches come in, evaluate. They look at body language, decision-making, ability to play in a system, how they are with their teammates, on-court behavior, skill level, love of the game. And I think those are a list in your textbook there. So I'm guessing there's going to be some questions about that. I have known an interview that I really liked, and I forgot what girls coach it was. It was for a girls team, or girls Division I. I don't know if it was Iowa or Stanford, or I don't think it was UConn because it was a female coach, so it wasn't Gino Oriyama, whatever his name is. But they said, I go and watch a high school game, and then I wait. I want to see the player come out of the locker room after the game. How do they interact with everybody after they think nobody's watching? And then that's how I know if they're going to fit in with the team aspect of this school. I love that concept for recruiting. If I was going to go do recruiting visits for PUC, I would be wanting to watch players after the game. I want to see, how do they treat their parents when they get out? How do they treat their friends when the game's over? And they think that the college coach isn't there watching anymore. Our book has a lot of things from DeMatha's ways to regulate everything. This looks like a lot of repeats here. There are mandated rules between recruiters and players. So like they can't talk to them until they can come watch as juniors, and they can't interact with them until they're senior. That's just an example. I don't know if that's what it truly is anymore. And maybe some of our varsity players can tell us more about that, because I haven't been a part of that side of it. But making sure you're aware that there are recruitment rules that you as a coach have to follow. So guidance for coaches, so assisting those student athletes. So coaches should help players get with their college placement, even if they don't go to college. I would always support my players going to colleges. I don't care if it's going to be mine, if it's D1, D2, D3, NAIA, Division I, Division II, or NCCCAA, any of them, whatever one they want to go to. And there are good teams and good coaches at every single level. And there are good schools that are going to get you a degree after that as well. But you want to help them do the best that they can. So before the season, we already kind of talked about this, the medical staff, training, weight skills. I think we talked about this more in the last few chapters, so we're going to keep going on this. All right, practice plans. So, how to plan an effective practice. Now, we talked again about this in volleyball.
and something I probably should have told you is in our files section of our class, there are practice plans from an Olympic level volleyball coach that won. I don't know when he won the gold medal, but I have at least access to this guy's practices, so you can see how it's all handwritten because it would have been from like the 90s. And yeah, so you have at least access to some really good practice plans that you can use for as a resource for your volleyball unit plan. Anyway, so we're going to talk more about basketball ones today. So having kind of a monthly plan is a good way to start. I usually plan them out for like a monthly plan. Like I have my preseason is about a month, and then I have first game, and then I have a break usually. I have like 2 or 3 games, and then I always have for basketball, tragically, I have like a 3 weeks off for Christmas. Worst thing ever, I have to say. Not a fan because your body tends to regress after about 2 weeks, so that kills us. So practices are monthly and then refined daily in the preseason November sessions, and then allow for flexibility in depending on what your team needs. Let's see. Monthly plans adapt to the changing situations. Practice sessions. I am meticulous in my plans, and I'll show you mine here in a little bit. Practices are planned and adjusted after practice and a coach meeting. So it's best to have a quick coaches meeting at the end of it to see how they did on this, what worked well. I know in our volleyball class, I really should have done more of those 2-on-2 net games that we did where we played kind of half court there. That seemed to go really well for us. I should have done more of that in our few times in the gym that we had for volleyball. Having a productive practice, so you want to have it structured with specific goals. Emphasizing what you time allowances. My assistant coach is really good at keeping me going. I had a coach it was my first teaching job, and when I was coaching gymnastics at the time. And I would stay and I had probably 35 people on this gymnastics team, and I'd probably have 20 of them working on a pyramid, which meant 15 people weren't doing anything. And that's including spotters and everything like that. So there were 15 people, there's just not enough tops to put on top of a pyramid of 4 people per person, that kind of thing. And I had a really good assistant coach. He was actually my principal and my basketball coach in high school. He was not a great basketball coach, but he was a good principal. That's why he hired me. Just kidding. But yeah, he would be like, Matt, we need to move on because they're not getting it. They're getting tired. They're not getting the pyramid. We need to move on to something else. And the rest of the team's not doing anything. So that was really good, having someone that was keeping me moving in my practices. And now I have a great assistant coach that's the pastor at the Haven Church. And I make my practices the night before. I send it to the whole group on a group chat. He comes in the morning with a clipboard with it on it. And he makes sure, he'd be like, Coach, we need to keep, he's like, you have this and this and this. All right, let's keep moving. You had this drill and this drill for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, I do 90-second drills. I write it down for 2 minutes, but I set my timer on my watch for 90 seconds for each drill to keep it moving quicker. All right, so here's the one that Coach Wooten put on there. He had 3 different ones here. So his practice plan, these are the things he wants to work on offense. Here's the defensive things he wants to work on. It's going to do 1-on-1, 2-on-2. Offense, defense versus wizard would be a play, I'm assuming. Half-court defense. And then here's his warm-up. So he wants to run this drill. So he just kind of writes what he wants to do. I don't do a whole lot of sprints in my practices. That's just personal, and that's just because I don't have enough time. So a 10-minute warm-up doing these drills here, I'm assuming. Then it goes into the 1-on-1, 2-on-2s. And his emphasis that day is moving your feet. And I try to write down my numbers there. I may try picking up this. I may copy and paste this out and try it just to see if I like that format. Because I'll show you mine in a little while. And sometimes it gets a little wordy at times. And then at the end of practice, he writes one more practice for the next game, what announcements he has. So in this case, academic slips. My team does that on Thursdays. They have to go to ask all their teachers what their grades are to make sure they're eligible for next week's games. and then stay on the books. Make sure you're getting your grades up, making, all his things there. And he has how much time he has. I list out like when rather than how many minutes, but I mean, it's the same concept. Here's kind of the basic DeMatha practice, and those DeMatha teams were amazing. I mean, John Wall went through DeMatha. I forgot who else we know in recent years that went through DeMatha. But they've got some amazing players that have gone through there. I like how he starts out full court pass drill, full court layup drill. They're getting their heart rates up right away. Then after they're tired, make 10 in a row, and I love this. If you make 9, I don't know what this, picks up a permission. I don't know if that means they get out of the next drill or something. If they make 7 or 8, nothing. If they make fewer than 7, then they pick up a double separator. I'm guessing that's some sort of penalty for not getting high enough on your free throws. I like the concept. I don't take a ton of time to shoot free throws. That's just personal, and as just time-wise, I usually tell them after practice, if you stick around after practice, you need to make 10 free throws in a row. That's just the way I've done it, but everybody to each their own. Defensive footwork, offensive footwork, then he goes back to full court 1-on-1, building to 2-on-2, all the way to 5-on-5, and we're going to do some of those there. I love individual stations. If you have enough coaches to do that and have them rotate every 3 minutes, I usually just take individual small group drills at that point. Team defensive drills, fast break drills. Again, he does full court things, and then dribbles again. If any of you figure out what the permissions and double separator are when you read the book, come tell me what it is. There's your homework for for class. Offensive drills, defensive drills. What else we got here? Time. Third set on the fouls there. So here's his O'Connell practices. So these are a little smaller, but still kind of the same. So pre-session stuff, man, that'd be great if I had pre-session. But my practices are 6 a.m. Stretching, thought for the day, warm-ups. Again, making 10 free throws. So he has a concept here. Building up to 5-on-5. Shell drill, not my personal favorite, but I do a little bit of it because there is necessary time for teaching that. Half court defense. Big 3, kind of want to know what that drill is. How to post on the perimeter. I mean, there's some good stuff here. So here's what mine look like. So I write out, here's like my week 1. This is from my practices last year. And I actually modified this. So this is very first practice of the year. Here's my goals for the week. I want to have dribbling and passing fundamentals. We did all the passing in class last week. I introduced the offense, and I will do shooting form with you guys. I actually just unpacked another shooting machine that is available to me, at least, because I coached the high school team. So we're going to use that for our class there. Introduce the press, introduce our zone if I have time. And that's all that I want to do in like 4 practices. And I did all of these things for you guys, all my announcements, my principles as a team, routines, as a fundamental. I actually skipped this with you guys because I didn't quite get into the dribbling stuff that I wanted to do, but we're going to go over that on the next practice because I wanted to get right into our games. I used to go straight into that 5-on-0 offense thing that we did in practice class the other day. And then I break it down into 3- and 4-man drills. And usually the second half of my first practice is all shooting. And if you guys want to see those, I have all the videos for it that I'll probably have you guys watch the day we go over shooting. So reminders for Wednesday or the next day, when you arrive at practice, I want them to line shoot with a partner. And I'm also really big on communication. And then I start, you can kind of see the beginning of my next one. Start with fundamentals, then going into passing. So being efficient, maintaining timely practices, that's why, that's one thing I didn't write out here. Notice I put time on everything. So, 6 in the morning, 6:05, we're dribbling. 6:15, we're going to start the offense. 6:35, we're going to do drills. And I actually have these in, so I gave them 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. Because the first time they run, it's a little tougher. And then at 6:50, I said I want to spend a 50-minute class period, which is how I teach it in my classes. So I write it out completely. maintaining good practices, having a strict practice schedule time, having pre-practice time efficiently. I'm going to actually have post-practice time because my practices technically end at like 7:30 to 7:40, somewhere in between there. They don't have school until 8, maybe even 8:05 over at prep. I'm not sure which. But I'm also never there because I need to get home and get both my kids to school and get my wife to work and myself to work. Because usually in the winter I have either weight training or physical fitness first thing in the morning at 8 o'clock. So I have to get everybody out the door and then back in. So my assistant coaches, which are going to be some college students this year, are going to run a couple more drills with them and then make sure they get to class on time and shut down the gym and all those kinds of things. Having a culture of discipline is and punctuality. I'd say discipline with punctuality is a big part of it. Your pre-practice or post-practice routines. One of the teams I've been around, one of the best gymnastics teams I'm around, they actually have all their they expect their team to show up half an hour before practice starts. And they do all their major stretchings, and it's gymnastics, so they're really stretching. And all their warm-ups are going to be done. And when practice starts, he starts right into a routine or a pyramid or something big. Like, I love that concept of having collegiate level players that they show up to practice 30 minutes early. And when coach starts it, I just love that concept. So if I ever coach college basketball, that's going to be part of my culture is we show up early, we get a few shots in, we get our stretching, our warm-ups in, get a little trainer time. If hopefully we have a trainer at the college I'm working at, preferably here, because I don't want to move. But having all those strategies are really important. Being some leadership things for you as implementing motivational tactics like thought of the day to inspire players is a big part of it. Motivational quotes. I steal from everybody. I've stolen Wooten quotes. I've stolen Phil Jackson quotes. Forgot who else. Steve Kerr. I've got a couple of those from him. Those are always fun. Quotes about Michael Jordan. That's my generation, so that's where I will have phrases that Michael Jordan used. I'll even take some of the Kobe Bryant ones where they're like, "There's no I in team, but there is in win." Silly stuff like that. I'll use that one much later when they know my sense of humor. Don't use that the first day. That would be very bad. Setting the tone with the mindset. This is something my team has struggled with the last couple of years. Is we are weak-minded. When things go wrong, we struggle to rebound or bounce back from it. I was really proud of the basketball team in their first game this year for the men here. So several of you were in the class. So I was really proud of how you guys handled. I think you were down like 14 or something at one point in the second half there and came back to within 5. It was great defensive intensity, great work on the fast breaks to get good buckets. And also we weren't shooting a ton. We weren't living and dying by the 3. I also really appreciated that. So reinforcing our attitudes and what we focus on encourages them to have a sense of urgency and professionalism. One big thing for me in practice is anytime we're doing full court stuff, I make sure we get the ball out quick so that the other team doesn't have a chance to set up their press. And that also challenges our team to set up our own press against them quickly. So like when you score, you don't have time to turn around and high-five your teammates on the way down the floor. No, you score and you have to immediately start the press, which I call it Samson. I'll tell you the story about Samson and Delilah later, about my 2 presses. There's definitely a correlation between your preparation, your mindset, and performance. If you are prepared for practice, you're in a mindset to get better 1% every day. There's a thought of the day that I'll use a lot. 1% and having high expectations. My team this year wants to win the tournament here. They'll be like, Napa Christian's not coming to coming to PUC's tournament. We want to win this tournament this year. So we have to be able to beat Rio. We have to be able to beat, what was the team that came from SoCal? I forgot which one. Loma Linda. And yeah, we got to be able to beat those teams rather than having to worry about Napa Christian. So kind of exciting there. Couple more things for making, we already talked about efficient planning, time management. I'm always a time manager. I want to condense time frames in my practices. I don't do straight layup drills. I will do a 3-person pass and cut drill, which we did the other day. That is a major part for me. So that we're not just working on layups. We're working on passing, cutting, and making the layup. And we're going to do a stick the landing layup is going to be my next one. Balancing your time on drills to avoid laziness and boredom. Definitely. We kind of already talked about that. Keep practices moving for physical and mental sharpness. Definitely don't want to be on the same drill. I hated a team that I watched. They did this like 3-man weave. And at the end, and they had 15 guys on the team. 3 of them were doing the drill with 1 ball. That means 12 guys are watching, and they would get down, they'd do a 3-man drill, but then they had to get like 3 different shots at the other end. I don't remember how it worked. It wasn't my favorite drill. And I was just like, guys, there's 12 guys watching and 3 guys moving. Like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And we only had 1 court available. I mean, there are 2 courts in the gym, but the girls had one side and boys had the other. And I was like, fine, if you want to do a 3-man weave, that's fine, but I want to see, the moment they get to half court, the next team goes, and you're using it more for conditioning than you are for anything else. Fun and competition. So this is what I'm working towards here, is trying to have more of a games type approach, so that it's more fun for the players to learn. When I see a lot of read and react coaches that are veterans that are doing it for their college teams, they don't do a lot of those 3-man drills. I mean, they do them for a day, maybe 2. And I'm going to try to use those 3-man drills more as a warm-up now than I am for the main part of my practice. I'm going to try to emphasize things in smaller groups more, and then 3-on-3, 2-on-2 kind of things. I try to be an upbeat and positive coach. I view myself more as a cheerleader statistician. So I love the X's and O's, but in practice, I'm not explaining them all the time to them. I'm trying to encourage the good things that I see rather than being a fix-it kind of coach. Maximize your engagement. So rotating drills, we kind of already talked about. Having point systems. That's something we're going to work on in the next practice, is having in our games-like approach, so our 3-on-3, 2-on-2 drills, where we actually get to compete, we're going to have things like if the defense gets a deflection, that's 1 point. If they get a possession-killing turnover, that's 3. Offense gets points for doing whatever thing we're emphasizing. When we're doing zone stuff, they get the ball in the paint, that counts as a point. Any post and pass, pass into the paint counts for that. So setting the tone for a positive culture, and then when you do a point system, you usually need an assistant coach or a manager keeping track. All right, that's what we have for that one. Have a wonderful day. See you in practice/class.